Welcome students, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be discussing and going through in depth infinite banking case study using whole life insurance. We're going to go back in time. I'm going to show you some videos I did in the past years ago on this specific case study, and then bringing you to the present, where we're at today, some of the things that we're working on, and some things that I'm excited about. We're also going to go through your thoughts, your philosophies, your strategies on this particular concept, see if it's a right fit for you or not. Okay? So before I get started, I will be sharing my screen, and it looks like, again, okay. Yeah, it looks like I'm having an issue again with LinkedIn, not able to dual live stream. So again, sorry for all the LinkedIn people. You're gonna have to come over to YouTube. I see 7 people in the house right now. Just want to do another quick comment. Let me know I'm good to go. And we're gonna dive right into it. So first, let me share my screen, give you some history of where we're at and some of the things that have happened, right? This would be pretty cool, right? So here we go. This is one video called 1.2 million in debt case study part 1, dealing with husband and wife. This is husband's income at the time. We're talking, this must have been between 2019 and 2020, I believe, is when I did this video. All right, let me see. This was how many? It was 4 years ago. Yeah, so 2020 is when this video got published. You can see their income, $23,402 at the time, expenses 16 grand, debt 1.1, almost 1.2 million. Most of that was student loans and a mortgage, as you can see the breakdown of it right here. In the very beginning, it was all about velocity banking with their second position home equity line of credit, $67,000. It was at 5.25%, right? And we were eliminating a bunch of debt. And as you can see, I was pretty much laying everything out. And let me see if I can fast forward if I wrote more stuff. Yeah, it looks like I did. All right. Let's go here. Yeah, so we've been redirecting money, redirecting savings. He was listening to the whole plan. Total debt paid in about 5 months was 113 grand. We did 2 whole chunks, 49K, 33K. A lot of progress there. So that's part 1 of that video. And I'll go ahead and copy and throw this into the chat for you guys to check out. This way it's there. You guys have that. Then part 2, the case study, kept going. And let me fast forward and show all the other parts involved. Let's see if I can get out the way. Oh, I look crazy there. Let's do, there we go. So I'm out of the way. So this part 2 shows, look, we eliminated all this debt, right? And while doing this, we were also strategizing on funding of various different policies, life insurance policies, one on himself, one on wife, one on daughter, okay? So that was back then, 3-4 years ago. Since then, one of the key components, I'm gonna take it back, stop sharing my screen, let's come back to the whiteboard, right? So that's giving you context. Oh, and before, let me go over here and put the part 2 link in the chat so you have it. This way it gives you full context of the type of person you're dealing with, right? Before implementing all these different strategy. This person was coming to the table with a level of discipline, high level of income, good amount of cash flow, even though we were in massive amount of debt, 1.2 million. One of their biggest priorities at the time when we first started working together was pay down debt. So we eliminated a ton of consumer debts that increased his cash flow quite a bit. At the same time, this is a type of person that's a value creator, right? Someone that creates value in their life over a long period of time, and that results in an increase in income, okay? If you don't see yourself or value yourself where you can create value out of thin air, you can create ideas, think of ideas, business plans, services that you can provide to the marketplace and get paid more money than where you currently are today. When it comes to velocity banking, infinite banking concept, when it comes to all these different strategies, they're only going to work so well, right? Based on where you're at today. But if we combine strategies, financial strategies, with your ability to increase value in the marketplace, it's simply going to enhance the strategy. If I have more income to work with, I've got more cash flow to work with. If I have someone that's a good steward, very good discipline, I'm going to be able to illustrate better results. If you're coming to the strategy, say velocity banking, infinite banking, or anything else that you hear on the internet, if you're coming into the strategy without pre-existing disciplines and without this confidence that you can create value in the marketplace and get paid more money over time, most of the time those people are thinking the strategy will save them. The strategy will get me out of debt. The strategy will make me wealthy, will create passive income. I'm here to tell you that's completely false. It just isn't so. You may have some sort of a boost in the beginning, and that's great, but it's not sustainable if we don't also look at how do you create value in the world? Or are you going to stay at your job at your consistent skill level? Are you going to stay at your current skill level and job for your whole active producing years until you retire? If so, again, these strategies are only going to take you so far. It may provide some relief in your lifestyle, but you're still going to be stuck in a box overall. At the end of the day, you're going to be stuck in a box. So to give you full context here in this case study, we're dealing with someone that has a desire to increase income, increase value in the marketplace, guard their kingdom, protect it, multiply it, cultivate it, okay? Very important. You're dealing with a person that is in a high skill environment. This is a doctor, right? So highly skilled and desires to continue to increase skill despite getting older. Doesn't matter. Age not a factor. They continue to expand their mindset, learn more skills. With me so far? Let me know in the comments. Okay? So gave you the full case study, gave you the background context there. Now let's look at 2024 today. What's going on, right? I'm really excited because I have a call coming up with this person. So I don't have all the details just yet because I haven't had a call with the individual yet. So the four major numbers are looking a bit blank. I can estimate, but I just wanted to leave it blank for now because it's not the primary focus of today's topic and what we're going to be discussing. We're just looking at the policy or the policies that this person's been able to build, right? What I did share with you from the last time we communicated, they had increased their income from that 23,000 range, and we doubled it from 2020 going into 2023 and onward. So when you take in their salary being 450 grand, distributions on top of that of 180, we're looking at 50,000 or more in income on a monthly basis. It doesn't necessarily come out monthly, right? He's more like 37, 35K on a monthly, and then quarterly distribution. So there's like 4 months out of the year where there's, big income months, right? And what this person was doing very strategically with those big income months is where we would save quite a bit of money into life insurance or make investments and or continue to pay off more debt, right? So again, from the very beginning, it was just velocity banking with a HELOC in the second position, pay off debt, cool. Then we graduated and we did velocity banking with a HELOC plus cash flow plus increasing value, being a value creator to help max fund 3 policies, okay? This is husband's primary policy here with Mass Mutual, funding $70,000 per year. We designed it to fund it for 10 years. The base premium is $8,296.88. After this year's funding, their anniversary date is in September. So their cash value will be somewhere around this number, $351,511. It'll be less because this number is assuming that they funded it and we're at the end of year 5, where technically we are at the end of year 4 right now, and we're going to enter year 5. So you put the principal in, then the money grows, then you get dividends by the end of year 5, which would be September 2025. The cash value should be right around here, 351. So it might be like 340 something, right? We have a total as of August 2024. We have $188,090 in loans, right? So if we look at the leverage of cash value compared to loans, right? Looking at that 351,511 number times 66%, that's 231. So we're well below 66% leveraged on the policy itself. Now, to be a little more accurate, if I take the 351, I'm just going to minus 70 grand, right? Times that by 66%, it's 185. So this person is like, with the current cash value that they have, which is really that 351 minus 70 grand, because we haven't funded the 70K just yet. That's happening in September. That their cash value is more around this number, 351, 511 minus 70. It's less than 281 right now on their total cash value altogether, right? And when you take that number times by two-thirds, they're about 66% leverage. It's probably a little bit more right now, and then that'll adjust itself once they do the next funding amount. So this follows the rules of leverage. We're staying in the guidelines of how I typically, coach and educate people and teach you guys the leverage rules and leverage capacity. We were talking about that yesterday. Today, it's like it's the same rules being applied to any strategy I implement. It's very, very healthy to do this. Now, even if he borrowed more than 2/3 in this specific policy, when you look at the overall plan of what we're doing, we are funding a policy on daughter for $3,600 a year. He's been funding that. We're entering year 5 on this. And then wife is being funded a policy at $27,000 a year. I think we're able to pay a little more into that, but I think for the majority of the years that it's been funded, I think we've been around that number, 27K. There might have been some years have been a little less, but that's the goal number, 27,000 a year. That's also, been funded for 5 years. So when you factor in how big these policies have grown, I think this one's probably, the daughter's one is probably like maybe 20K by now. And then wife's got to be almost six figures, I would assume, maybe a little less. So we're gonna, once we have our call, I'll be able to get all the updated numbers on that. But when you look at it all together, okay, yes, we're not over leveraged by any means, and we have plenty of reserves, right? So velocity banking to pay off debt in the beginning. Then it was velocity banking to help max fund IBC policies. What did that look like? Well, in the beginning, when he was around that 23K range, very strategically, we would pull money from the HELOC to not all of it, not all 70K, but the difference between cash flow on hand, cash on hand, and whatever we lacked to make up for the full 70 so that we could have it fully funded that initial year, and then we would borrow against that money and go make certain moves. In the beginning, typically we were using these policies to fund daughter's tuition. We did that a couple years. Sometimes he would borrow from his own policy to help max fund daughter's and wife's policy. We did that a couple times. I think he might have ran a tax expense through there. These are strategies that are not forever strategies. These are strategies that buy time, okay? So you may find, and we'll get into your philosophy, your way of thinking about infinite banking, how you can use it for yourself and your own finances. Over the years, this is what I learned for myself, as it relates to funding a policy is one thing, and then what you do with the policy is a whole nother ballgame. Now, to stretch your dollars, you could make a case, you could make an argument for max funding a policy with dollars you intend to spend. So it's like you're saving your money first, then you're borrowing against that same dollars that you were saving, and now you're going to pay for an expense. That could work for the sake of getting more money into the policy, and over the long haul, you would recoup on what you just did. But in my opinion, it is not a forever strategy. I think what I like to do with my clients is wean them off of velocity banking altogether at some point, usually, and wean you off of using expense dollars to fund a policy to borrow against to pay for the expense, right? In the beginning, that may work for a couple of years. The reason why it's not a forever strategy is there's typically not a plan in place on how do we repay all those loans if I'm not a value creator. If I plan on 10xing my income and I'm going to use expenses to help me initially max fund these policies, okay, cool. I may be for that, and this person's going to increase their income. So by the time they 10x, 4x, 5x, whatever it is, we're in a position where we have way more income, way more cash flow to pay back all those loans. And then at that point, you don't need to use expenses anymore to max fund your policy because you're making all this money. Does that make sense? Right? So as long as we're increasing cash flow, increasing income, I'm okay with the whole idea of running certain expenses through your policy for the sake of buying time and for the sake of max funding, getting more money into the policy because it's ultimately going to grow tax-free, compounded forever and ever as long as you live, right? I get that part. So that's what we did for the first couple of years. Then it was velocity banking plus infinite banking together, right? To leverage, to create more income, to create more opportunities. And now we're solving pretty much since day one. We've always been solving for financial freedom, right? That's like end game, financial freedom. Get to that point, financial independence, financial freedom, being in a position where I don't have to work, I get to work, I want to work, I'm in my zone, I'm in my peace, I'm in my place of abundance. I can be a major contributor, all these different things. Wonderful, wonderful, right? At some point, these strategies should change. If you stay stuck in your box for too long, for me, that's when inefficiencies start to occur, because we're hoping for the strategy itself to deliver us financial freedom, and that's not the case. That's not what's going to happen, I promise you. So that's the breakdown of this particular case study here, and I'm excited. I'll make another video later on once I get more details and see where the person is currently at, what they're working on. But we can basically say that in the last 4 or 5 years, this person has saved almost $500,000 in whole life insurance, and by year 6 or 7, maybe a little sooner, will have $500,000 built up in cash value. And that same $500,000, roughly 66% of it, was used to either make investments, pay off debt, or cover certain expenses. So the money got used twice, 3 times, 4 times over. Right? Really, really cool. And here is the breakdown of how these things work. Now, if you have questions, I want you to put questions in the comments. I want you to let me know what's going through your mind. What are you thinking? What are you working on? What are you stuck on? Right? I want to take a lot of time to break that down over here. Right? And another thing that I will do, right? I'm going to share with you some more guidelines. This is something I've also done in the past, where you can email me directly and ask me for the documents. You just say subject line, IBC documents. And basically these are very, very, very helpful frameworks, guidelines, regardless of who you work with in the industry, whether you work with me directly, one of my partners, or one of my fellow content creators that talk about infinite banking and max funding policies and doing all these wonderful things with them. What I'm going to share with you are super helpful guidelines, can't go wrong, allows you to really see where you're currently at, making sure you're not forcing these things to work in your favor, right? Because you don't want to have future problems later on. So let me take a few seconds here to pull this up. So the main documents that I have as it relates to infinite banking, I got one titled Infinite Banking Funding Rules that I came up with personally, Infinite Banking Marketing Terms, and then I have Infinite Banking Checklist. Let me pull this up for you. Bear with me. So yeah, Infinite Banking Checklist. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Again, if you want this document, just email me directly. Happy to send it your way. All right. So these are a list of questions that you can simply ask for yourself and also ask the agent that you're working with. Right? Have them explain their process to you in detail. There's so many different ways that you can implement this concept, generally known as infinite banking, right? And I'll get into the marketing terms because there's different names for it. The reason for that is you're dealing with different people, right? So they have different values in that regard. So you've got explain their process to you in detail. Do you have chemistry with the agent, right? This is someone that if you do business with this specific agent, ideally you want to know if they're going to be in the business for, majority of their life. Like, is this something they truly want to do and desire? And if not, that might be a red flag for you, right? Because this is someone that you need to be able to contact at least every single year, see how your policy is performing, go over questions, those types of things, right? Ask yourself, how does the agent handle objections, legitimate questions? Right? You may have a legitimate question. Hey, why should I finance a car through here? Hey, why is the base premium this high? Compared to the cash value starting in the beginning year. I've seen other designs where it can have higher cash value. Why are we doing this over this? Why this company over that? See how they handle it. If they become argumentative or make you read a book or something or force you to watch 10 videos, hey, that is part of their process. And you have to ask yourself if that's something you're willing to do or not. Okay? Will the agent take time to hear your problems and concerns? Does the agent plan on being in the business for the whole career? In case they leave the industry, who do you contact next to provide support on your policy or policies, right? Super important. So that's for the agent guideline for you. Am I thinking long-term or short-term? How much cash flow do I have per year? What is your minimum number you can pay in per year with your eyes closed? Meaning, what should your minimum base premium be that you can afford even if you lose your job, even if your income gets cut in half? This is not going to be a stretch. It's not going to feel like a bill. If you set your base premium too high, you set your expectations too high on how you can overfund this life insurance policy, and things don't go your way according to plan because life happens, could end up destroying the policy. So it almost doesn't matter how the policy performed because it didn't stay alive, right? So I much rather design a policy that's doable, more than doable for someone, with the opportunity for you to grow with it. That's usually how I like to do it. All right, so what is the desired amount that you want to pay in per year? That's a different number. And how long do you want to max fund? What's the strategy once the policy is fully funded? What's the strategy while you are funding? These things can change, right? And then these are other products and services I go over that you can stack on top of these policies as you grow, different things that you can obtain that would improve, right? This goes over the different policy designs in the marketplace. Generally speaking, you've got 1090, 1585, 2080, 2575, 4060. The first number being how much of your dollars is going to base premium. The second number being how much of your dollars is going to cash value. Okay. I personally believe that anything past 40% of your money going to the base premium, you're no longer really practicing infinite banking. You might be solving for a different purpose. That's my opinion, right? It's not necessarily a fact. It's just what I've seen people's policies set up. Some people thought they were doing infinite banking and didn't realize they had 90% of their money or 100% of their money going to the base. I'm like, that's not infinite banking. The agent sold you an incorrect policy. It's like asking for a Mercedes at a Mercedes dealership. This is the car you want. You're on the phone with them, and then you show up and they provide you a GMC vehicle. Like, that's not what you wanted, but you didn't know until you got there, right? And then here are 3 people that I enjoy working with that design policies very ethically, very efficiently. I like their work. I like their ways of thinking. I like how they process. You got Steve Parisi, Caleb, Daniel Romberg. All of them have YouTube channels. Those links directly. You check that out. Again, you just email me. Happy to send you that. So that's the infinite banking checklist. Okay. And let me also find the other one. Here you go. So you got infinite banking marketing terms. Okay. These infinite banking marketing terms, they all are literally referring to the same exact thing. Whole life insurance, for the most part, right? These are just, you're then dealing with different people in terms of how they typically design policies or their philosophy around it, right? So I'm asking you, comment below, what is your philosophy around infinite banking, how it can work for your life? What do you want it to do for you? There's so much flexibility, so much customization in this. So these are all most of the marketing terms that I know of. And then these are the actual products, right? L100, L95, 10 pay, 20 pay, 30 pay. Whole life is the general product. Then you have different designs, right? I'm gonna add one in here called high early cash value design. That's another one, only provided by MassMutual. And then these are the general companies that are typically used for this concept, but I would argue not too many people, not too many agents use this company. So I'll just throw that out there. Nor this company, right? I would say companies that are more popular, very popular, right, to use, you got Emeritus, One America, popular, Lafayette, popular. MassMutual lost popularity. So I'd say lost some popularity because they disagree with infinite banking. Okay. They put out a statement not too long ago. And what that basically means is MassMutual doesn't really, it's like a double-edged sword for them because they have an amazing product called the high early cash value design, literally designed for max funding and high early cash value upfront. You can use it, leverage it however you want. So it's not like the company is saying you can't do infinite banking. They just don't want, I think, it in their atmosphere or whatever the case, right? So a lot of prominent infinite banking practitioners such as Chris Noggle, who put out a video, Chris Kirkpatrick, a couple other guys that are very, very prominent, very popular, doing a lot of designs, may have used MassMutual in the past quite a bit, probably own MassMutual themselves. I own MassMutual myself, but they no longer write with them because either they got their license to a point with the company, probably got maybe taken away, especially when you're vocal on the internet. That can, bark up the wrong bush sometimes. So that's just something to be aware of. I still write with MassMutual, right? I just let my clients know that when you bring up IBC to their staff, they're not going to be as helpful. Whereas maybe a Guardian would, or a Lafayette, or maybe a One America or Emeritus, like some of the smaller companies like Penn, Lafayette, One America, Emeritus are you could say they have more support. I personally don't own a policy with Penn Mutual, Lafayette, One America, or Emeritus, but I know those are the most popular ones that typically get used. And a lot of my fellow content creators, business owners use those companies. I personally own with MassMutual and Guardian, and that's kind of like the only policies I've ever written with for my clients. What I do plan on doing, probably, I might get a policy with One America to start testing it out. And that's going to be my goal as I get older and older. As I want to get a policy with probably all these different companies that typically get used, just to see what the experience is like and performance. Right, here we go with company criteria. It's got to be mutually owned. It's got to be 100 plus years old. You need to see actual performance history on a actual life insurance policy, not just assumptions, right? When you get that really helps. Stability and flexibility is important as well. Stability just meaning the viability of the company. You're able to see how much revenue they're bringing in, what they're focused on, what they're looking at. Flexibility meaning how you're able to fund the policy, right? And then I still need to probably update this because more people have probably entered the space since then. But these are your top people that will talk about infinite banking, right? And I'm probably missing a ton in here, right? I got Chris Noggle there. And then these are books on the infinite banking concept. Again, not everyone is saying the same thing, but they're essentially pointing you to whole life, right? And then again, these are the three people that I refer business to, that I enjoy their process. I like what they do. I like what they stand for. I like their philosophies. So all of that very, very helpful. Again, you want all of that. Happy to give that to you. Just email me directly. I'll put my email in the chat so that you have it. And that in about how long? 35 minutes. Look at that. In under 35 minutes. Just gave you the full framework, context of a case study situation, how to be thinking, how do you go into this. You can go back, you can watch it slowly and build yourself through. Now we're going to look at some questions, see what you're thinking. So Jay says, I'm currently on velocity banking using a second lien. Balances 100,000, using cash flow of 1,000 to pay down the HELOC. Should I use HELOC for IBC? So to me, it's a yes and no. Personally, let me share another document with you, Jay. Give me a second here. So I'm going to pull up. Let's see, why can't I pull this up? Okay, perfect. Yep. All right. This is going to be very, very helpful for you, Jay. And again, email me directly. Happy to help you with this. So let's say you are considering that you're going to use debt to help you fund a whole life insurance policy. That is a very trendy, sexy kind of a topic in the marketplace. I don't know if I'm to blame on that. Probably. I have quite a few case studies that go over that, how it successfully works. And there are times where that will not work. And so I came up with a guideline, again, in terms of how I would proceed. All right, so this is my can't go wrong formula as it relates to how you fund a policy, coming up with the dollar amount, and then also how you're going to use debt to continue to fund the policy, keeping in mind this is not a forever strategy. You don't do this every single year for a long period of time in your policy. That would not make sense because now you're not being a value creator. We want to get to a point where your income gives you the ability to not need to leverage to get your policy fully funded. So what I like to see, Jay, is your conservative, consistent monthly cash flow. Take that number, times it by 12, right? Ask yourself, how much money am I saving per year, right? Or per month? And what does that look like in a year? How much money do you invest per month, per year, right? Let's look at that. Let's look at your debt tool, times it by 66%. You already owe 100 grand, according to what you just said, right? I don't know what the credit limit is on there, right? But I would probably make an argument that you're probably, leveraged up a little bit, and I probably would stop right there, right? Then I'm going to look at how much money does Jay have on hand, savings, capital, liquid available to him, right? Here would be the example. Let's say you're cash flowing 5 grand a month. That's 60 grand a year, right? And say you're saving 30 grand per year and investing 15. Let's say he's got 200 grand on cash, and we got a first lien HELOC at 320K. 2/3 of that is 211, right? Based on these numbers, we can safely, with our eyes closed, fund a policy anywhere from 30 to 40 grand per year, right? With probably a base premium around 3 to 4 grand. And then more aggressive would be 50 to 70K, because that's his total cash flow per year. That's aggressive, right? And this is the breakdown of premium split So base being as low as 3,400, 6,800, right? And then goes a little higher, 13,600, right? So I would go through this exercise, Jay, for yourself, right? Now, what I typically like to see, in addition to what I just said there, in addition to that framework, what I typically like to see is if you're coming out the gate with at least $1,500 a month in cash flow, right? And then whatever the amount that we want to fund your policy, I also want to see first year's funding amount available in cash, not debt, right? So for the first year, I would like to see, this is for any policy I write in the realm of infinite banking. Typically, there's some nuances, like say, for example, I'm funding a policy on a child, right? You don't need nearly as much cash flow to fund a policy on a child, right? If it's a second policy, a third policy, totally different. But let's say for that first policy on the person I'm working with that's looking to put in a significant dollar amount, I'd like to see them with at least $1,500 a month or more in cash flow. And if the number is, say they want to fund $20K a year, I'd like to see that they have that in cash, ready to deploy. This way, it buys us 12 months to come up with next year's $20K, right? According to this number right here, $1,500 a month is only $18,000 a year in total cash flow. So how are we going to fund a policy $20K a year? That's where leverage would come into play. But again, I want to see at least the first year you save $20K in cash. So that means first year's funding is done. Then we're buying 12 months to either save up to $20K or get close to it, and then use a debt tool to make up for the difference. That would be it. All it's doing is making up for the difference that we didn't already have in cash on hand. Now, if I'm dealing with someone that has, or let's say we're doing velocity banking, so you're already dumping all your income in to the line of credit, then what happens is we transition from velocity banking to pay off debt to velocity banking to fund a policy, right? So Jay, let's say you're planning on making that transition. Well, so we're no longer paying off debt from the debt tool. So that means ideally, I want to see the debt tool paid off or close to zero. So debt tool paid off or close to zero, and your chunk that we decide, that we come up with, your chunk goes to the policy, right? From there, I borrow against the policy. I'm either going to dump that back into my line of credit, or I'm borrowing against the policy to invest, to create, right, more income. That would be the purpose there. That is what I like to see. Here's where people get into big problems when they don't follow my guidelines, because they're smarter than me, and they probably are, right? Because you're the adult, I'm a kid, 20 years old. I understand. I don't know a whole lot. I'm learning. I'm not the best. I get it. So when the ego gets in the way, right? Here, this is for you, Jay. This is for others listening as well. This is what happens. I'm giving you history. I'm giving you what actually happens to people, right? When they take my content and they kind of abuse it, right? This is what happens. Let's say they have a HELOC, and we have a balance owed already, and low cash flow. In my humble opinion, low cash flow for the sake of the strategy below 1,500, right? That's not a lot, right? For the sake of this particular strategy. So first thing is they owe money on their HELOC already, their debt tool. They have low cash flow to begin with, below 1,500. And they have existing debts, right? Which is also reducing cash flow. This is a perfect example of someone getting themselves into a bigger mess. Okay? Now, here's what they say. Here's what the client is saying. Or this is what they go and do. Then they come back to me and they hire me as their financial coach. This is what happens. They say, I'm going to use velocity banking to invest in IBC. That's a problem. You're not investing, right? So that's a red flag, again, on top of the other 3 red flags. So they're going to use velocity banking to invest in the IBC. That's what they say. Then they go and do it, right? Typically, they end up with a policy with a higher base premium, which means lower cash value to begin with, which means it's going to take more time for that policy to really mature. It's another problem. So they buy policy with debt, right? And then they're going to borrow against their policy as much as they can, put it back in their HELOC, try and do velocity banking with the little cash flow they already have, plus they already have existing debts. And what's happening is, by math alone, they increased their cost of living. How? Whatever the base premium was on the policy. So if I already came into the gate with $1,500 cash flow, and let's say I have a base premium of $3,000, right? We'll take $3,000 divide by 12, that's $250. So your cash flow gets reduced by $1,250, right? By $250. So now you're at $1,250 cash flow. So cash flow is already being reduced, right? Which means less money stays in the HELOC now, because you just incurred a new cost called life insurance. And it's not just the $3K, there's also term and PUA expense built in there. So maybe it's like $4 or $5K. 5K divided by 12, now you have $416, right? So 1,500 minus 416, now it's more like 1084. So their cash flow reduced. They may have gotten the first year's funding right. They do velocity banking. They don't know whether they should pay off a debt with their HELOC or wait to fund their policy. What always happens in year 2 or year 3 is they start to fund less, right? So plan starts to fail and they pay in less money to IBC. That's the problem. So now you're paying in less money to IBC because you came out the gate leveraging instead of having the cash available to you, right? You leveraged 100% to finance IBC. I don't like that. I don't agree with it. Again, could it work? Absolutely. I've seen it happen before with some clients. With the context of them being a value creator, very disciplined, very frugal, very efficient with their numbers, and they were able to make up for that. Whereas other times, it was not the case. They ended up being in a bad situation. So Jay, I hope that was very helpful, right? And others listening, that you understand what you are fully getting yourself into when you are leveraging. When you are leveraging, you are creating risk, whether you like it or not. You're creating risk. The reason why you're creating the risk is we're trying to buy time, or we're trying to go faster in a more efficient manner. And again, what we almost never see on the internet is the person that talks about leverage, they don't talk about leverage risk or leverage capacity or leverage rules. On this channel, we cover more about leverage rules, capacity, and risk before actually taking the risk, before actually leveraging. Do we have our framework? So we're not just going to say, Jay, hey, should I do this? We're not going to say that question. We're going to say, based on math, if I were to do this, my leverage capacity is X, my chunk amount is Y, it'll equal this, that's about as much I can do, and I need to have this much in cash to fund first year's funding. Outside of that, if you don't do that, you're now creating a future problem that we may not know how to solve, especially if you're not in the mindset of value creation. Okay? Sean says, currently in the process of setting up a policy, how would you suggest using funds above what's designated for initial funding? Should consider another policy if makes sense, saving/funding for future. Good question. So let's say, and I think I know who I'm talking to here, right? So I'm gonna pull them up because I believe I know who Sean is. So let me look just to confirm. Right. So this is cool. So this is a person I'm working with. So shout out to Sean. So we have a policy design. I'm gonna create some space. All right, this will be fun. Show you exactly what we're working on. All right. And then I'll share their numbers. All right, and I would argue that the Sean family are value creators, or desire to be. They have discipline, which is good. They have healthy cash flow, which is also good. They do have a debt tool, which is also good. All things looking pretty cool. So let's see. All right. So we are funding a policy, husband, and wife, 10K and 10K. We chose Mass Mutual. We're in the underwriting process now, if I'm not mistaken. We're beginning that application process. So it's 10K, 10K. Look at what our base premium is real quick for them. All right. So base premium is looking like $2,516.44. And a MEC of $26,811.80. That's husband. Let's look at wife. These numbers might change slightly, just depends on what we ultimately get approved in our rating. Okay, looks like I did the same thing, exact thing for wife as well. Oh no, let me go. Let me look up wife real quick. So that was husband's. Let's do wife. So it's also 10K. Mass Mutual. And then, okay, yeah, it's a little bit less because women live longer than men, so the insurance expense is slightly less. So base premium $2,485. Back 18,000. 394. 73. Okay, so 10 and 10. All right. Let me go find their numbers real quick as well. I think we're also looking at put a policy on one of the children. Let me see. Bear with me. Perfect. Yep. And then we got one child that we're gonna probably fund a policy on. Look at, they'll have to correct me, but we have child, I think we were looking at 5K, and I think we were gonna go with Mass or Guardian, if I'm not mistaken. Base premium somewhere around $1,250. MEC somewhere like 19,000. They're super young, super healthy. So far we got, say, about 15K total funding estimated. They'll have to correct me. I might be a little off. So I'm going fast. Let me find their spreadsheet. let's see. Bear with me. So I am looking at a spreadsheet from them. This was back in, no, that's too old. That was 2021. Let me see. If you're with me, Sean, do me a favor. Send me your spreadsheet. Do me a favor and send me your spreadsheet. I'm trying to find it. So, going off of history. All right, I'll delete this part. I'm gonna wait for them, see if they can get me that latest numbers. Christopher Flores, we're talking about whole life insurance predominantly here as it relates to funding a policy to do certain moves with it, all that good stuff. We got Adrian in house, has a second position HELOC at 9.4%, and I can get an offer first position HELOC at 14%. It's a no for me already, and can pay all my debts in house with it. My cash will increase $3,500 a month, but at the cost of 14%. I don't know if the math is correct on there. We'd have to really look at that in detail. Would it be a good idea to go from my first position HELOC, 90K used, to a first position HELOC and gain an increased cash flow of $3,500 a month in order to get a policy with the 250K that I will get? Adrian, I don't know, man. Let's jump on a call. I don't know how confident I am in that number, going from a 9.4% to a 14% HELOC. What bank is that? So I can just let all my audience know to basically avoid that bank, because I know 3 other banks that will give a first position home equity line of credit for under 9%, 8.5% right now. So if that was true, at 14% cash flow gain $3,500, what does 9% get me? What does my cash flow go then? What about 6, 7 on a first position home equity line of credit? So it's honestly, Adrian, totally on immediate no for me, because I know that there's other banks out there that I can get approved for, probably pay less in fees, and have a net interest rate under double digits, probably at 8. I know a bank right now that's doing 6.25% for the first year. Another bank is doing like 7.75. We got 8.5 on a first position home equity line of credit. I know 3 banks off the top of my head, right? But please comment below what bank that is so I can tell all my clients to avoid that. It's like, why? Don't go with them. They're not competitive. Why give them my business? Right? It makes no sense. Why should I give them my business? Okay. All right. So just so that this is an example, I don't know why I can't find their darn numbers. Oh, it might be this. Oh, but the session timed out. Okay. Let's do... Okay, nice. This is not too long ago. All right. Let's show you their numbers. Take it to the whiteboard. Here we go. 10,000. 294. Cash flow. 4,186. All right. 10,294 minus 4,196. These are not accurate, just letting you know. These are old numbers that I'm working with on them. So now let's do when I first started working with them a while back, we had over $500,000 plus in debt. That's not the case today. It is less, much less. Oh, nice. They just sent me their numbers. Perfect. So I could probably update this real quick. Cool. We're going to have some fun. Oh, well, then I can just give you history. So that's 2021 numbers for this particular client. Right? Okay. We have HELOC. For $7,000. We owe $244.55, so that's basically paid off, right? Let's look at income assets. All right, so if I'm not mistaken, I believe, right? Okay, yeah, here we are. So look, here's where we're at today. 10,214. Right. 1,214 minus 1315.84. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, that we have the money aside. I think we had spoke about that. I'm just not seeing it on the spreadsheet. Just correct me if I'm wrong there. So today's cash flow, 1,584. So 1315.84 times 12. So we're at 15,790.08. Based on funding alone, total funding 15K cash flow, today's cash flow 15K. That's looking aggressive, right? This is what we've been mapping out. Now, that's the goal number, 15K. Let's just say a year. It's the goal number. Here's the minimum, right? Say 1250, 2485, 2516. Okay. So total, right? 6,251. See that? Follow my rules. You don't get into trouble. 10,000, 21, or 5, right? So this is a conservative number. And then this is aggressive. Our minimum to fund 3 policies is the $6,251.44 number. Granted, it'll be a little bit higher to account for base premium and stuff, but it's going to get nowhere near that number, right? We do have debt. We still have debt on the table that we're looking at, but I believe that we are transitioning. Right? I know I got to have another call with them to verify everything. We've got student loans. We have some credit cards. We've got car loan, and we've got 2 properties, 1 rental, 1 primary, okay? And we got our HELOC at the 7K. And then, so here you go. They said, yes, ready to fund fully, right? So you can't make this stuff up, right? This would be ideal. This is how this family right here does not get themselves into trouble, right? Let me delete this part so there's no confusion, right? So they've got the HELOC, that's their debt tool primary, right? We started here in 2021, the numbers were a little bit better. That might have been inaccurate, honestly. Probably a little bit less. Here's where we're at today. That's our income, these are our expenses, that's our cash flow. Cash flow times 12, I'll follow that first rule. Cash flow in a year times 66%, no more than $10,421.45 is what I would leverage to fund a policy, right? So if we had that as our minimum, and we can create the policy, we can design the policy to grow with it. We can grow with this policy over time. They're not obligated to pay that $15K over these 3 policies every single year. Our obligation is this, right? That's important. So we have our minimum, we have our goal number, and then we have our growth numbers, right? They can fund all the way up to the 20+ thousand, 18+ thousand, 19+ thousand. We can grow with it, but we're not obligating ourselves to that number. Yet, we still also, like I said earlier, they have first year's funding. So they have this, pretty much, to get 3 policies in force. We have a HELOC, we have a debt tool in place. We'll probably go to a HELOC soon, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to chat with them on that. But eventually we'll probably upgrade our tool, get more. And so we have bought, right? We have 12 months, future 12 months bought out, right? Before they have to come up with another 15 to get to their max funding amount for each policy. So the pressure is off, yet they still have debt, right? And then what we're using the policy for, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that we're going to move some debts into these 2 policies. I don't think we're going to touch the child policy. I think we're going to leave that alone, let that grow. So that could be like emergency, the backup of the backup funds. When we borrow from each of these policies, we're only going to borrow a percentage out. And I believe we are going to eliminate debt. So when we eliminate the debt that we go after, there's going to be a cash flow gain. That cash flow gain comes back into our economy here, and we're probably just going to be saving the money up to get to max fund next year plus cover loan interest, right? So our probably goal max fund next year plus cover loan interest cost, whatever we borrow. This is ideal. You see that, Jay? Very, very ideal. Where it's like, yeah, you could be in debt and still acquire a policy. We're just shifting how we now get out of this debt. We're shifting it. So instead of attacking it directly, we're saying we're going to fund these policies first, protect our human life value on everyone in the household. We're going to be saving money first, tax-free, compounded, guaranteed for as long as we live. And then we'll borrow a portion of that money and start to pay off debt. This will go slower. They understand that. They're going to get out of debt slower. But when they become debt-free, they'll be debt-free plus have 3 assets. Tax-free, compounded growth on a guaranteed basis, right? And protecting their human life value in case anything happens on the way of creating wealth. Massive death benefit gets paid out, and either whoever passes away will not receive the financial burden because there'll be a death benefit paid out to cover many of the expenses, many of the costs. They also have other life insurance as well, right? To be, fully insured, fully protected. And our strategy overall, max fund the policies year by year. That's the goal. Whatever I borrow, I'm not paying back initially because I'm getting out of debt. I'm moving debt over here that's charging me interest and payments, required interest, and moving it over into an environment where there's no required payments and the interest can be paid from the cash flow that I gain. All right, so it just covers the interest cost to carry that debt, which is at a lower cost. Meanwhile, those same dollars are earning interest, which eventually will create an offset. So by the time I pay back the loans, my cash value will be higher than what I initially started with from the very beginning. And then that could be our play until they're fully debt free. All right, so that's fun. Okay, let's see what else we got. I would like to set up an appointment to have our numbers run and a plan set up. Which link should I go to? So there is a link in the description that says book a call with me one-to-one. That's for an hour, right? I have another option that you can reach out to me. We do a whiteboard session if you like. That's like roughly almost 2 hours that we'd be dedicating. So you will see that link in the description below and also on all my videos. All right, so just open that up. But I will make your life easier, and I will just pull the link up on my end. Get that to you, and then let me read your other question that you had. Do you suggest HELOC to pay down debt before doing the infinite banking or vice versa? So there's a world where both could be done at the same time through infinite banking, right? So depending on the leverage rules, the funding rules, your leverage capacity, your understanding of the concept, let's say all those numbers line up and it's clean, then we could use cash on hand to fully fund first year's policy. And then your HELOC is your backup to max fund your policy for ongoing years, of which we then borrow from the policy to pay off debt instead of the HELOC directly. And you're basically using the HELOC to max fund your policy and to cover loan interest while you park debt into the policy. So that means we're not necessarily investing, right? We're just simply eliminating debt in a more efficient way, arguably. Even though it might take a little more time, you're building an asset along the way, right? And if you're a value creator, if we increase our income at the same time you're getting out of debt, then velocity banking becomes obsolete over time. We're going to be able to wean off the HELOC, and then it would just be full policy, borrow, pay debt, right? And then We could even over time switch our HELOC, maybe for a cash value collateral line of credit, maybe for a first lien HELOC, and see how those things play out, right? Hopefully that's helpful. Let me get the link for my friend here. All right, so just do that in the chat for you for 90-day goals. Put it up on the screen. Does anybody else have any other questions, concerns? Right? How are you thinking about this stuff, right? How are you processing it? What's the philosophy? What's the strategy? What's the plan? How are we going to put all this stuff together? All right, so it's nice and clean, right? And even though we are taking risk when we leverage, how do we minimize that risk tremendously, right, to avoid any issues? How do we do that? Okay. Let me give you what I like, what I see as this is picture perfect for me. So I'm going to share with you my current numbers and progress, what's been going on in my finances, and what my strategy is, right? So strategy, low, this is what I'm doing. Velocity banking with first lien HELOC plus 0% credit cards to park debt in. Velocity banking with first lien HELOC to park all income plus cover expenses, right? Then with the first lien HELOC, max funds, whole life policies, total of 4, which equals about 115K saving per year, right? So I have a home. These are my living quarters. This is my kingdom. This is my domain. This is my garden. Right? That's the home. On the home itself, we have a credit line of $567,000, 6.25%, 1 year. It'll be like that for just 1 year. I believe right now I'm at a 9.3. I'm getting ready to refi into a 6.25 for 1 year. We're just working that out. And that's my HELOC. All the income, all my income is parking into my home base. All of that money is liquid and available, which is why I prefer this over a first lien mortgage for 30 years. Right? So that's my way of thinking currently. So I'm at the first lien HELOC position. $567. I will check my balance right now, give you accurate numbers, what I owe on my first lien HELOC. I don't think you'll be able to see it. So it says I owe $411 currently, $413.96 owed, $154K available. So this $154K is my savings, an emergency fund. My home is my emergency fund, is my savings. I don't have separate cash out, right? So I have it all parked in there, right? Then this $115,000 over the course of 12 months will get parked. It's going to stay in the home equity line along with all my income. All my expenses come out of the home eventually, pays all my bills. Majority of my bills are run on a credit card. I'm using 0% credit cards to park some of that $411 in cards at 0% for 18 months, 21 months. So I'm doing a couple, like 2 or 3. Nothing crazy, right? Following my rules, 66% leverage, not over leveraging, right? Now, what will happen is come next year, money has to come out of the HELOC to fund these 4 policies over the course of 1 year. Not all at once, but one at a time, 4 times out of the year, right? So what happens is all cash flow sits in the line temporarily. It'll come out of the line, parks in here, and now I'm earning interest guaranteed, right? Tax-free, compounded. Then I borrow 66% back out, park it right back in the first lien. Then I go deploy that money into the business, and the business generates more money. Hence, this strategy is perfect for value creators. So because I'm creating more value, I'm going to increase more income, right? Which gets parked into the home, which whether I'm trying to pay off my home faster or not, it's happening by automation, which is really cool. I cannot get that with a first lien mortgage. Automation, right? So what this strategy solves for debt elimination on auto, and this solves for savings and asset building, right? I'm building 4 assets. I got 4 policies, right? And then I take a portion of that same money, put it back into the HELOC, and then I deploy it again, make investments in my biz, right? For every dollar I invest in my biz, I should get 3 or more dollars back net. after tax, right? So that means I put $1 in and I'm going to earn 300% rate of return on my money, maybe more. But on average, it should be about a 300% return for every dollar I put in the business. Maybe not net. Actually, now that I think about it, probably like 250. Probably like 250% net after taxes and fees. But now if the dollar goes up, right? If my dollar, every dollar I put in invest and I get 4, then yes, then this 300 number is a little more accurate, right? So 300% ROI. I don't know another place on planet Earth where I can get 300% on any investment other than the investment being in me, personal development, and creating value in the marketplace and serving people, helping people at the highest level according to my skills, gifts, and talents, according to what God gave me, right? So if I can continue to do that over and over again, year after year, over and over again, year after year, year after year, by automation, my home gets paid off. And so what happens is I wean myself off of the first lien HELOC where I don't need it. So eventually, HELOC becomes obsolete, right? Don't need it. But yet, I'll have a $567,000 credit line available and accessible at any point in time. So that will continue to function as savings and emergency funds on top of the savings and emergency funds I have inside the various whole life policies, right? And it's the same money. The same money I'm using to save into my banking system here is the same money that's being used to pay down the home automatically. And it's the same money that's being used to invest in my biz. And it's the same money being used over and over and over again to accomplish what everybody wants. Financial freedom, independence, right? Security. You want to have your kingdom, your domain, your garden. You want to protect it. You want to multiply it, right? And ultimately, you want to dominate. That's my goal. I want to dominate my life, control it. Nobody else controls it. Full dominion, which is what I have been given by grace, right? That is my gift, dominion on this planet, and I use it, right? Because if I don't use it, somebody else will use it on me, and then they dictate how I live, what time I get up, what time I go to sleep, what time I show up for this, what time I show up for that. Not pretty, okay? So that is picture perfect, and that's what it solves for. And then the parameters is the same thing. Cash flow times 12, times that by 66%. Do you have first year's funding to get it going, right? And then your debt tool is a backup to make up for whatever your cash flow did not accumulate over those 12 months. That's what it makes up for, right? And then what you do with the policy is important. What are we doing with the policy? Are we paying off debt or are we making an investment, right? In my case, I'm funding my policy, then I'm borrowing against that policy at a cheaper interest rate to pay down my primary residence automatically. And then I do take some of that money back out to fund different investments, different projects to continue to secure my domain, right? And increase efficiency. Make investments that either save me money, make me money, right? Powerful stuff. All right, we are complete. We did very good today. Very confident. So action steps, you can email me directly for the IBC documents that I put together, funding rules, marketing terms, right? Leverage capacity, all that. Happy to give that to you. It's a nice framework. And then there's 3 links below of people that you can work with that I like, I enjoy, I work with them myself. get plenty of results. Or if you desire to work with me directly, just make that known in an email. I'd like you to help me work with me directly, okay? And then if you're like, say Jay or 90 Day Goals here that wants to set up an appointment, right? Link below in the description. Got it over the screen right now as well. Simple 1 hour discussion. You want to come to the call prepared. Once you book a call, you're going to get an email from me. It's going to give you the guidelines. Say, please come prepared. Have all your numbers ready. Send it to me in advance. Send me your questions in advance. Send me the background, your history, your life story. As much as you want to share it, the more the better. And that helps me get prepared and helps me serve you at an even higher level, which is what I love to do. Absolutely love doing that. So with that being said, God bless to you all. Thank you for tuning in. Please like the video. Please support this channel. Share it with others. Share it with your spouse. Share it with your friends. Let's build the kingdom. Let's build your kingdom. Let's maximize it. Let's have some fun. All right. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and we'll be talking soon.